Hello and welcome back to Level Up with Loraine. I am your host, Loraine, and today we are going to be talking about consistency and the 5 keys to achieving consistency. So, as you guys know, or for my returning listeners, you would know that obviously this podcast is new and it's something that I have committed to doing persistently and growing myself and my audience with the material and the content that I put out, right? And so I want to talk about consistency because lately I have struggled with recording. And my commitment to myself and my listeners has been that I will have weekly episodes that are released every Monday. However, the most important thing for me has been quality and making sure that that is not compromised and the content remains value adding to the audience and myself. So when I started this journey, I was very excited. I was so driven and, pumped, and I had all these goals and plans of how I'm going to record, the schedule and this and that. But life happens, right? And I've realized that lately there's been a lot more required of me at work, at home, in my personal life, etc. And so I had to sit down recently and remind myself, by asking questions like, what were you trying to achieve? What's the big goal? And how do you attain it? How do you make sure you remain consistent in what you have committed to? How important is this for me? And I realized that obviously I'm using my example of this podcast, but it could be anything really. It could be you wanting to start meal planning to make sure that you have a healthy food throughout. It could be you, wanting to start a fitness journey and, remaining consistent in that. It could be you wanting to read more books and bettering your vocabulary and your writing skills through reading more books. And so it could be anything really that you have set yourself up for or set out to do as a goal. And now you're struggling to maintain that, right? And usually when we set goals for ourselves, the reason that they don't stick or we end up not achieving those goals is because we don't remain consistent. We don't build up the habit that is required for you to be consistent and to be consistent enough to then realize the success attached to that goal. So using fitness, for example, you say on the 1st of January, I'm going to be committed to my fitness journey. I'm going to register for a gym. I'm going to start going for park runs every weekend. I'm going to have, change my diet, my lifestyle, etc. You're so excited when you are thinking about it and you're planning, it's all in your head. And that energy and that zeal when you're planning starts to die out when you actually have to show up. When Saturday comes and you have to go for that 5-kilometer run. When Wednesday comes and you have to go to the gym, right? And so this episode is talking about what is consistency and how do you actually achieve it so that you can be successful in your goals. So I loved this quote by Anthony Robbins, which says, it's not what we do in a while that shapes our lives, but it's what we do consistently. So what is consistency? What's the definition? Consistency is behaving in the same way and having the same attitude, the same energy towards people and things for you to be able to achieve the same level of success in something. And I'm sure you've heard of the saying, practice makes perfect. So after a long time of practicing something or doing it over and over again consistently, your work or whatever that something is will become natural. It'll become skillful, swift, steady. You become more confident in it. So using maybe fitness as an example, as you build up your strength, you've told yourself, I'm going to be running every other day. If you are consistent in that and you continue to practice that habit of running every other day, you build up your strength, your flexibility, your endurance, and your body, is starting to get used to this exercise and able to handle more stress. It's able to adjust, and you become more physically active naturally. But without consistency, your body will not be able to adjust efficiently to prevent things like strains and injuries. And, if you've realized, when you start exercising consistently, you quickly gain rhythm. And before you know it, you are just so physically active. It doesn't require much effort. However, when you start and stop and start and stop, it's a lot of effort mentally and physically to gear up to do that exercise. I think the same can be said about even this podcast. It was a lot of effort for me to research when I was starting out what materials to use, how to speak into the mic, how to edit, etc. But now it's natural because I've been doing it weekly. And there are other strategies I'm going to share with you that have helped me in remaining consistent. But the more you do something, the easier it becomes. Once you stop, you sort of lose that momentum and energy to remain consistent. So really, it's the starting and stopping that makes a lot of people fall off before they even get started. Because it's exciting when you think about starting something and you're planning it in your head. And then the work begins and you haven't created the habit or strengthened your consistency muscle. So let's discuss what I think are the 5 keys to consistency. The first thing to note is it's important to think big. What is your overall overarching goal? What is the vision? Think big and start small is what I've learned. So know your why. Why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you starting a fitness journey? Why are you starting meal planning? Why are you starting a podcast? Why do you want to read? What is that bigger goal? I know what that is for me. So besides what I've shared around personal and professional development, I have big dreams that sort of require me to start at this level of a podcast. For me, these are the small steps towards my big dream, in quotes. And these small steps, I'm already realizing a lot of success and development for myself and for other people based on their feedback. But I do have a vision board, and I do know what this podcast is trying to achieve for me in the future. And so it's a small step towards something bigger that I'm gunning for. So it's very important for you to know your why. Why do you want to start whatever you are starting? When you create a compelling vision of what you're trying to achieve, if you know why, it will be easier for you to show up. So for example, if you've started a fitness or an exercise journey because you want to be able to fit into your wedding dress, fitting into your wedding dress is your bigger goal. Okay. Changing your meals daily, running every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, etc. Those are small steps towards your bigger goal. And this will help you show up daily. If you have a picture of that wedding dress, if you have a vision of that wedding day, it will make it easier for you on a day-to-day basis to start to be consistent in the small steps. Secondly, share with your accountability partners. It's important to have people that can hold you accountable to something. And I've spoken about them in other episodes when I shared about dealing with self-doubt or any vulnerabilities you may have in your life. It's important to share those with people you trust who can then call you out when that self-doubt is rearing its head or anything is your weakness or your development area is showing up. If you share your goal with an accountability partner, it's very easy to then have someone who reminds you what that goal is. And this person can call you out when you're slacking. And so have an accountability partner. So you don't need to be on this journey alone. Having someone to help you along this journey can be a fantastic motivating factor. They can help you stay motivated. They can help you plan and strategize and, relook at what it is you're trying to achieve and what would work best in your season. They can act as independent observers. They can remind you of your goals when you seem to be slacking or forgetting what it is you're trying to attain. And they can give you advice on how to improve. But it needs to be someone who has your best interests at heart, who believes in you and your goal, and someone you can trust. Key number 3 is focus. Have the willpower to do one thing at a time. So it's already difficult to commit to one thing, right? I'm going to start a podcast and I'm going to be consistent in it. I'm going to start a fitness journey and I'm going to be consistent in it. Can you imagine trying to start 2 new things at the same time? That only splits your focus. It splits your attention. It makes you feel even tired because now you are trying to build a habit or 2 habits at the same time. So if you're going to start exercising, try not to then also add on top of that a new thing like I'm going to quit smoking, for example. These require effort and strong willpower on their own as individual tasks. So can you imagine if you then try and do both at the same time? So I would say key number 3 is focus on one at a time, one goal at a time. Otherwise, you may fail at both. The 4th tip, which I think is pretty important, is preparation and prioritization. So things like meal prepping for the week are so important if you're trying to lose weight, right? If you have a goal to have lost 5 kgs in 3 months or whatever it is, meal prepping is one of those small steps. And you prepping your meals for the week is preparation and showing that you are leaving no room for you to have a bad meal because you don't have a readily available one. Another thing I can share, I guess, that is more unique to me is batch recording. So I know that this podcast is a weekly one where I try and share episodes every Monday. And so I have been trying to be more disciplined in my preparation by batch recording a number of episodes in advance and then, releasing them slowly. That way, if there happens to be a bad week where I am busy at home at work and I cannot record, I do have some recordings that are banked already. And so that is preparation that will set you up for success. Prioritizing is when you schedule your life around this goal. So if you say you are going to be exercising, schedule it in your calendar. Block it out so that nothing else becomes more important than you exercising. For you to be consistent, you have to prioritize whatever your goal is and don't make it an option. So build your entire schedule around this goal. The problem with not preparing and not prioritizing means you're sending a message to yourself and the universe that this is not so important. And so if it's not in your calendar, if it's not prepped in advance, if it's not scheduled, then is it really important? Ask yourself that question. And if it is very important to you, find ways to block out time to make it important and fit in to your regular schedule. And the last key to consistency is understanding that it is all in the mind and there will be some days off. There will be days that you fall off the wagon. But what is important is to get back on the wagon. So just because I skipped a week, I had a bad week and I just couldn't get to recording, or I just could not get time to meal prep for my better diet, does not mean that I throw the whole plan away because I skipped a week. It means I need to reassess, reaffirm, and get back on the wagon. The battle is in the mind. And once you tell yourself that narrative and make sure that you're able to motivate yourself time and again, that is all there is to it. You have tomorrow to get back on the wagon and redo it again. Those are my 5 keys to consistency that I believe are important for you to build and create a habit and remain consistent in it. I also want you to read Atomic Habits if you have not already done so. I do plan to share a review of the book soon. It really does help with the art and science of creating lasting or sustainable habits. It's really about what I spoke about earlier, which is thinking big, but starting small with little atomic habits, right? So I will share a review on that. That's it for this episode of Level Up with Loraine. If you enjoyed this episode and the nuggets I shared on consistency, please leave a review and share it with your friends. Until next week, goodbye and continue to level up.